Cherian, thank you so much for stopping by and joining the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
You've been quite busy, a couple sessions and on the board here at AFP. So how are you holding up?
I'm exhausted, but I'm loving it. It's great to see people. It's great to just meet people that you've only met on Zoom or on LinkedIn or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to just be able to be in person for this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be back in person for conferences all together. So
Absolutely.
you guys have put on a great event so far.
Oh,
so
thanks so much.
for all the
and
all
thanks
the
for
hard
being
work.
here.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Yeah, no,
especially
we
this
love
first
it.
time after the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. So today I want to talk about endowments with you.
Absolutely.
And
I know a little bit about that.
A little bit about that. I have a couple just kind of like 101 questions
Sure.
For our listeners, and then want to kind of dig into sort of like why, or actually hear from you whether or not this is a fit for all nonprofits.
Oh, I can answer that question right away. No.
No. Okay,
No.
good. We're going to
Are we
find
good?
out.
Are we done?
Yeah, we're
Quick?
done. It's done. It's over.
Fastest podcast ever.
There you go. Well, let's start with, tell us a little bit about the company and
Yeah.
what you guys specialize in.
Absolutely. So I actually did frontline fundraising for 25 years, and two different investment firms reached out to me during the pandemic because they were seeing a lot of nonprofits struggling with sustainability, and they wanted to see if I would come work with them to help their clients do better with regard to fundraising, but also kind of manage investments and figure out what that looked like. One was a big box firm, a name that you would know, and they had a $5 million minimum for assets and also wanted me to work with individual high net worth donors. That really wasn't my wheelhouse. It's not what I was super passionate about. I work a lot with small and mid-sized nonprofits. So this other firm only works with nonprofits and foundations. And they had no asset minimum. So if you have $100 or $1,000 to invest and start the process of building that, and we can get into kind of the different strategies for why you might do that. But the idea was that they were open. They were really excited about helping that part of the sector that wasn't being helped by other investment advisors.
Got it.
So that's why I ended up, deciding to go with this firm. And the other part that's really cool is they will open up a brokerage account so that any nonprofit can accept a gift of stock and charge no commission.
Oh, wow.
Because what they realize is it's just pushing a button.
Yeah.
So as long as you just get stock gifts from a donor and you're putting it in your checking account, you're not investing it, no fee.
Right. Okay.
And I was like, I love that. These are my people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So share with us a little bit about sort of like the profile of nonprofits where this sort of investment vehicle makes sense for the organization.
Sure. So the thing that people mostly think about are these big, like Harvard-sized endowments, right? Where they're spinning off revenue and whatnot, and operationally they're taking a portion of that, whatever, 3, 4, 5%, using that for whatever their programs are. That is one model, and we have clients that are really big that, we have community foundations where we manage other advisors and put together a one-stop shop for their board and then help them with advice on investments as well. But most of our clients they have a Mackenzie Scott event where they have a donor who leaves them a bunch of money in their will. They don't need that money immediately, and they don't want to put it in their checking account because inflation's going to tear into that, especially right now.
Yeah.
So what do we do? How do we make that work? So we develop out generally two different strategies. One is for those funds that you might need within the next 3 to 5 years. We'll conservatively invest that, but it has more liquidity to it. So if you need to pay bonuses or raises or something like that, or pay for operations, you can do that out of that fund. And then we have sort of what we call the long-term forever money that you're starting to kind of build up. It's a vehicle so that you can talk about planned giving with your donors and say, hey, we've got this strategy for what that investment will look like. If you want to endow a scholarship, or you want to endow, the food bank in some way, or you want to make sure that these services are provided long after you're gone, Justin, we can work with you on that as a donor. Here's what that would look like. And the thing to realize is that every investment advisor basically has the same tools, especially when it comes to nonprofits. You're not going to invest it all in crypto or invest it all in Apple or something like that.
At the blackjack tables
right,
here.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all these broad-based index funds, and you're trying to optimize the best you can.
Okay.
But the thing that the investment advisor that doesn't know nonprofits really well typically doesn't get is that you don't need a tax advantage for nonprofits.
Right.
They could nonprofits could theoretically day trade because they don't.
There's no low or long-term or short-term capital gains tax.
Exactly. There's no short-term capital gains, so they could do that. We don't recommend that. Obviously, we don't do that for our clients, but you could be more proactive in managing assets rather than just saying like this Ronco. I'm dating myself, but like set it and forget it machine where you don't never touch it. You can kind of say, and we do this all the time, where we say, hey, this is what we're seeing in the market right now. We're recommending this shift.
Yeah, and there's no tax harvesting or anything like that needed because of
exactly.
status. Yeah,
but I think the key is, to your first question, it's not right for every nonprofit, but it is right. Different vehicles are right for different nonprofits.
I mean, because I think nonprofits of all sizes should think about their long-term sort of financial plans.
Yep.
And I mean, depending on the size, everyone has, committed wealthy donors who one day, could pass on a nice endowment or whatever it might be.
And some of them you don't even know, right? So one of the things we encourage all the time is sort of this passive marketing of what you have available so that someone who doesn't want to tell you that they're going to put you in the will knows, they have a strategy, they have a plan. I won't overload this organization by dropping $1 million on them, or even 100,000. Like someone dies and they have their house and they want to sell their house and give it to the organization. That's honestly like a big situation.
Okay.
That happens a lot.
How much money is in planned giving? What's what data do you have around how big is this market?
It's gigantic. There's 10,000 people who are retiring every day right now. And so the baby boomers some of them have extended their retirement plan because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But the general idea is that planned giving right now represents the largest wealth transfer in human history. It's trillions of dollars in money that's moving from the boomers to Generation X and millennials. A lot of that is transferring in stocks.
Oh, interesting.
So that is a considerable opportunity, and for nonprofits to be able to kind of tap into that and really see what that looks like. So to modify my answer, I don't know that investments are right for every nonprofit, but every nonprofit should be able to accept a gift of stock.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where that's going to come from or what donor will need to do that, honestly.
Yeah.
And so just having that vehicle available is important for every nonprofit.
It's very rarely have I seen it being easy to give stock, right? It always involves downloading something, connecting brokerage. And so do you guys make that easier for nonprofits, or is it still?
So honestly, we don't. Okay. I'll be totally honest. The way that FINRA and the SEC works, it requires you to say, yes, I want to transfer these assets in this form to this charity. There's not a lot of ways to get around that unless you transfer your assets to some sort of holding organization that then transfers it to the nonprofit, and then somebody's got to get paid to do that.
Yeah.
Our view is if you're going to give $5,000, I think the average stock gift is like $6,000. If you're going to give $6,000 to an organization and you want it to be used, we don't want to take anything out of that. So there are companies out there that will charge like 8-10%, and for a small nonprofit, I sit on the board of an organization. They got a $50,000 stock gift. The broker charged them 2%.
Wow.
$2,000 to a nonprofit
for pushing a button.
That's for literally pushing a button.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So with today's volatility in the markets, do you recommend nonprofits to liquidate the stock donations immediately or to hold them? And obviously it depends on organizations' cash flow and so forth.
Absolutely.
But what's your perspective on?
So I would start with the cash flow needs, of course, of the organization. We'd work through those specific scenarios. A lot of times gift acceptance policies or organizational policies around stock gifts will talk about liquidating immediately. That's not actually the right answer because you might have a dividend coming up on an Apple stock or something like that. And because of that, if we waited 2 days, the nonprofit would end up with more money.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we'll look at very intently and make sure that this is the right answer for the nonprofit.
Got it.
But in general, it probably is the case that most of the time you just liquidate it, you use it for operational dollars in that situation. Yeah.
That makes sense. Going back to planned giving here real quick, one of the I think barriers, at least I don't know, I don't have any data to back this up, and so I'd be curious to hear sort of your thought on it, is I think that nonprofit professionals are in this constant grind. I got to hit the annual budget, right? January 1st starts over again, got to hit this number. And so planned giving is much more long term. Yeah, you don't see the benefits of your efforts right away.
Yep.
And so I wonder how much of that actually prevents organizations from having a more strategic approach to plan giving.
It does, and that happens around the boardroom table and with senior executives all the time. They're like, why would we think about plan giving? We need money to pay people now and to do these programs now. There's some really great research from Dr. Russell James out of Texas Tech University that talks about the fact that when people make plan gifts, their annual gifts increase.
Oh, interesting.
So, and it makes sense from a psychological perspective. If you're putting 20% of your future estate into a nonprofit, that's a pretty significant psychological connection that you're making with what you're donating to that organization. So you want to see that organization succeed today.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that they've got the resources. So his longitudinal study identifies that annual fund gifts increase when you have plan giving donors.
Any examples of organizations, whether you work with them or not, that you've seen that have a really effective plan giving strategy, and what do they do that sets them apart?
I would say everyone that is doing some form of plan giving is doing it well because they're telling donors, right? Yeah, exactly. They're doing it. They're telling donors that this is an opportunity, and not a lot of donors know that that's an option. And then you can get more complicated, but I don't think you need to. I think there are some particular organizations that are really smart about plan gifts, and I think the common thread is that they are intentional about reaching out to people based upon data or relationship conversations. What I like to do, and Dr. James talks about this as well, is when you're having conversations with people, you're truly listening for what are those cues? What are the things that might indicate? And one of the biggest ones is, I'd love to do more, but I can't.
Yeah.
And that's where you can say, let's talk more about that. What is it that you really want to do? And how can we talk about a gift in your will or a gift of an IRA, which is a really smart thing to gift rather than pass on to your heirs.
Why is that? From a tax?
From a tax perspective.
Okay.
So right now, and we'll see if the law changes, but right now, if you gift your kids equal shares of the IRA, they've got to take it out in a period of time. Now, depending on your age and their income, they got to pay tax on top as income on for that IRA disbursement. So it's really smart if you have other assets to gift those to your kids and then gift the IRA to a charity.
One last question, and then I'll let you go since I know you're so busy. Well, I do have some rapid fire questions I want to ask you real quick on this note of tax.
Sure.
Are there any benefits in plan giving? And I think you maybe just answered this, give your IRA instead of your house or something like that. But for an estate, right? Someone that designates 20% of their estate to a charity. Is there a right way to go about doing that so that the family who's left behind isn't left with a larger tax bill? Or do they receive impact from the tax?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I was a fundraiser, that was the difficult question to have because I was the fundraiser, not the finance advisor, the financial planner. So now we get to have those conversations with donors on behalf of the nonprofit, so they don't get into the sticky stuff. But there are absolutely tax-wise ways to make gifts at the end of life, but there are also tax-wise ways to make gifts today. So you get an inheritance from your parents. You have an income that you've got to deal with right now. You can structure gifts that will pay you right now for a gift that you make to charity, or pay your kids money right now or in the future because you've made a gift to charity. So these things are going to become really more popular as estates get settled. But a lot of times when you think about estates and their $25 million things, there are people with houses that have appreciated during the pandemic. They're sitting on a $200,000-$400,000 house. They got to figure out what to do with that. And what we always say is you'd rather that go to a cause that you love and care about than to the federal government.
Absolutely.
Right? So
absolutely.
How do we make this work so that you can do what you're really passionate about?
Have you found that donors are sophisticated with on the tax side of giving, or do you think that it requires a lot of education?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they have an advisor that's really smart about it and really understands charitable giving, and they can do that. The nice thing for us is because I come from a fundraising background and our organization only works with nonprofits, when we pick up the phone, we're like, Justin, thank you so much for this gift. What made you make the decision to make a gift to this organization? This is the impact that you're having, because we know who our clients are.
Yeah.
And then we can feed that back to the development director or the staff to say, here's how you can follow up with this person appropriately.
Right.
But the nice thing is that some donors are like, I've heard about this, the fundraiser told me about this, how can we make this happen? We'll advise them, provide them with the right tools to be able to maximize what they want to achieve. Other times we have donors that call and they're like, we don't know. We just want to give some money.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And in those situations, we'll help work through their circumstance. We don't advise individuals, but we can advise them on that particular gift to the nonprofit.
What's most strategic. Got it. All right, let's do some rapid fire questions.
Absolutely. Knock it out.
All right. The serious questions.
Okay.
All right, here we go. There's no wrong or right answer.
All right.
Movies or series?
Probably more series, but depends on the movie. But more series.
More series?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite series right now?
Have you seen Severance on?
Yes, I'm watching that right now.
Okay, you're not done
I'm
yet?
on episode 4.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil it. It is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing at the end. Let's talk about it after.
Okay, all right, yeah. Tacos or cheeseburgers?
That's like picking between my kids.
Yeah.
I can't
You can't do that? All right, so you're saying both.
Is there a taco cheeseburger? That should be a thing.
Now it is.
Now it is.
Taco
Trademark.
Beach or the mountains?
Beach.
Beach. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Digital reading or an actual book?
Digital.
Digital?
Actually, audiobook is.
That's the way to go for you?
That's me. Yeah.
Okay.
Easier for me.
Ice cream or froyo?
I'm lactose intolerant.
So none.
Neither.
Yeah. Gelato maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? Because I think it's dairy-free, isn't it?
It's got to be special, but
okay.
not a big sweets person.
Well,
so.
Football or football?
Football.
Football.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So like you call soccer. I mean, sorry.
I call football soccer.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah.
Yep.
And then last one here, important: Moana or Aladdin?
Aladdin.
What about your kids? You said your kids.
They love everything.
Everything.
My little girl loves Encanto right now, so
Okay.
that's kind of her big thing. But
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Really
Awesome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.